Hello and welcome to Unsettled Status 2, and I'm back here today with Cosi Hill. We're in New Brighton, just over the water from Liverpool, and I've come all the way from the northeast to come and chat about this because now you've got your settled status. Yay!
No,
everything's all right in the world. No.
No.
Oh.
No. I mean, yes, I have.
Okay.
Been granted settled status, or rather, I've been granted indefinite leave to remain under the EU settlement scheme.
Okay.
And please don't congratulate me.
Oh, okay.
Because it makes me feel raped. Honestly, it doesn't feel good.
Wow.
I know I should feel relieved. My husband feels relieved. My children feel relieved. And I just feel like I've complied with a regime that is breaking my human rights, which is a fact. So I'm not proud of it. I know why I did it. I know I did it to protect my family and to keep my family together, but that's how it feels. So when I first posted on Facebook, guess what? I got settled status. And people said congratulations. It made me feel really ill when they said congratulations, and I had to say, please guys, don't say congratulations, because this is not something I want to be congratulated on. So, well, let's rewind and go back to when we last spoke. Yeah, on that bombshell.
Yeah, that got very serious very fast, didn't it? Bloody hell. I'm sitting here eating crisps and you're like, oh.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's okay. No, I appreciate that we try and put a little bit of humour into this situation just to keep ourselves sane, but it's horrible. And I remember saying in the last video, you know, I feel horrific that my country is doing this to you.
Absolutely.
That, you know, this is a country that I used to be proud of.
Good and decent people do. Even leavers, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes, I think they are. If and when they find out what it's like, usually they're quite shocked about what settled status entails, what it means. You know, the fact that we have to report back to the Home Office in the same way as somebody who has been released from prison on parole.
Wow, that's one way of putting it.
You know? But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So last time we spoke was the day after I'd had the phone call from the very nice caseworker over in Liverpool at the Home Office, at the Immigration Department, telling me that I needed to supply some more evidence to prove that I'd been resident in the country for the last 5 years. I've only been here 30 years, right? And obviously on the Friday I was busy. I was meeting up with you for making another video, saying hello to all you guys. And on the weekend, obviously, we've got kids, we've got always something on the agenda, what have you not. I wasn't really going to get a chance to do anything about it until the Tuesday. Well, guess what? Monday morning, I get an email saying, your settled status has been granted.
So that was the Monday morning after we made the video?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've not actually supplied the evidence that they asked for. Now, this is, in a way, it's great and it's good, but it still indicates and shows what a shambles it is that, you know, that they ask for evidence and then they go, oh, actually, no, we don't need it. So, you know, I spent the weekend kind of thinking, oh, what am I going to send them? Where will I find them? What have I done with those council tax bills? And then after all, they weren't necessary. And I don't know the reason why. And okay, it's fine. I mean, you could say all's well that ends well. You don't have to know the reason why. Excuse me, it's not important. And no, it isn't. But then when you want to look at the wider picture and you want to understand how the Home Office works and how different people experience the Home Office, then it does become important. We know, for example, that the Home Office gives more attention to cases where there is media interest. So I was actually told by somebody who used to work in the Home Office if this is in terms of naturalisation of third country nationals, so not really relevant to EU citizens, but they turned around and said, look, if you have any thoughts that the Home Office made a mistake, and they do have a 10% error rate, and in 75% of cases taken to tribunal, the Home Office loses. So it's proven that the Home Office deported or rejected people unlawfully.
Wow.
So she said, get media interest, because the minute you get media interest, it's no longer just dealt with by a caseworker, but it gets a supervisor as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's something that I was thinking of when I asked my mum to do an interview for ITV News about having to stockpile medicine for my dad.
Yeah.
And the thinking behind that, it is an intrusion into our privacy as a family. But at the same time, if push comes to shove and my dad can't get his medication, we've got some level of protection to say, actually, you know, we were talking about this on ITN News
we tried to flag this up.
We tried to flag this up, and then you've got another news story. So just out of, you know, interest in trying to keep my dad out of hospital.
Yeah, looked after.
I've done the same thing.
So, again, it arguably, did they grant it because somebody looked at the name and went, oh, she's an activist, she's a campaigner. Let's just, you know, we don't want her feeling rejected because she's going to make a big hoo-ha, she's going to make a big fuss. I don't know. And this is the problem with the data exemption of the Home Office, which I think I alluded to last time. So we know, you know, the Home Office and immigration questions are completely exempt from data protection. And I can't stress this enough. And one Leave voter actually said to me that they thought this was perfectly okay.
I assume they weren't affected by it then?
Well, yes and no, because anybody who gets a passport is affected by it. British citizens as well.
So if I apply for a passport, my details that I supply to the Home Office for my passport could be passed on to a third party?
Well, not in the past, as far as I remember. I don't know when you last renewed your passport, but at the moment
2014.
I mean, you've probably done quite a few passport renewals because, you know, you probably ran out of
proud
pages.
owner of 7 different passports.
No, that's quite impressive.
All but one of which are full.
Wow, that's impressive. So my husband, whose passport is not full, but, you know, it had run out and it was up for renewal. And that's actually one of the things that made me go for the EU settlement scheme rather than the Windrush ILR scheme, which I do qualify for because I've been here long enough. And part of me thought I quite like to go through the Windrush scheme just out of sheer solidarity with my Caribbean friends.
Sorry, back up. What's the Windrush scheme?
Oh, right, okay. So you remember the Windrush scandal nearly a year ago?
Yeah.
It came out and became apparent.
Is that the one that nobody got into trouble for it? It's a repeating theme here. I feel like I'm in a massive school in which you can be as naughty as you like and you will never ever get in trouble. And the kids who are naughty are being naughtier, the bullies, they're bullying more, they're doing, and just seeing what they can get away with. And at the moment, it seems that they can get away with anything.
Murder. It will be. It will be. When we can talk about deaths due to Brexit, then it will be murder. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. So the whole Windrush scandal blew up about, was it April last year, thereabouts? And I mean, it's been going on. There have been people who were refused to re-enter the UK after a holiday somewhere in Jamaica or wherever. Years ago. So this is going back quite a while, but finally it all blew up and became known. And as a result, the Home Office started the so-called Windrush ILR scheme, which means you can apply for ILR, which is indefinite leave to remain, which means you're allowed to stay here, you won't get deported, you're allowed to work, you're allowed to rent a place, you're allowed to get medical treatment on the NHS, which, again, the NHS, a founding principle of the NHS is that it is free at the point of care.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Yeah. It
kind of flies in the face of that. So anyway, but putting that to one side because otherwise I'll go off on a tangent. So they brought about this scheme which was designed to make it easier to apply for indefinite leave to remain if you maybe didn't have any documentation but you've been here for donkey's years. So they would accept a wider range of different pieces of evidence and documentation and so on and so forth. And you could send them photocopies of your passport and you didn't have to do the That's all right, don't worry.
Oh, okay.
Well, we can cut that out.
Yeah, we can have a look. No worries.
Hello, darling, how are you?
Hello.
Thanks, yeah. I've gone past my wedding ring.
You know, you are in so much trouble.
I am.
Yeah. You just have to get married again, have a
Yeah.
party. There you go. Sorted. Right, no worries.
No worries, no worries.
Right, sorry, where were we? We got interrupted by a guy who's lost his wedding ring. So we were talking about the Windrush.
Yeah. So the Windrush scheme,
was it
Windrush
the-
Indefinite Leave to Remain scheme. So that was opened up, I think, in August, and it's not very well publicised, but basically you can apply for indefinite leave to remain with an easier bureaucratic process, and it's designed for people who have been in the UK since before December 1988. So I just qualify because I came here in August 1988.
Cool.
And with that, you don't have to use the app.
And you don't have to be from the Caribbean.
No,
Be from anywhere in the world.
you can be from anywhere.
Cool.
And you don't have to use the app to verify your identity, which means you don't get your face scanned, you don't have the issue with all the... So my thinking was, okay, I would escape my concerns with the use of my data and all my data being sent across the internet and everything.
Yeah.
But then my husband renewed his passport, and as part of the online renewal process, he had to tick the box that says, I agree for the Home Office to share my data with private and public third parties in the UK and overseas.
Wow. So the Home Office is selling our data, because that's a lot of money
Yes.
to be made out of data, as Facebook and Cambridge Analytica can attest. So that's disgraceful, isn't
can.
it? So
The
not
thing
an
is-
Australian online poker company could have your details,
Might very well.
which they paid a top dollar for from the British government itself.
In theory, the thing is, your check and balance for that would be
Yeah.
if they, you can make a freedom of information request and you can say, what have you done with my data?
Let's do that.
Well, normally you can. You can do that with the NHS, you can do that with any other organisation, except the Home Office.
Oh. So our government can sell our details
And no
to the
one will
highest
ever
bidder,
find them out.
and no one will ever find them out.
Now,
It seems like a nice
3
little
million,
earner if you're evil. Good job, no one in our government's evil.
the 3 million, the lobbying group, the 3 million.
This is the 3 million EU
Yeah.
citizens
Well,
living
it's
in
a
the UK.
lobbying group called the 3 million because they lobby and speak about the rights of the 3.6 million EU citizens EU 27 citizens, in the UK.
Yep.
And they work very closely with an organisation called British in Europe, who represent the 1-point-something million British citizens in the EU 27 countries. So they have actually launched a legal challenge against the exemption from data protection laws.
Oh, really?
They have. So we can only hope that
Doesn't sound
they
like
are
it-
successful.
Doesn't sound like
and
something that would be legal.
but the thing is, they had to fundraise thousands. I think they fundraised something like £30,000 before they could even get started with the legal challenge. And that's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
You actually need an organisation and lots of money. You need big, deep pockets to actually go to
anywhere.
court to ensure that the government acts legally. For example, the
Gina
other
Miller.
day, Gina Miller did it, exactly. Now, thank God she has deep pockets, but I just mentioned this to somebody in a different context today, but do you think if she had known beforehand that she would have death threats, that she would have to move house, that her children would have to move school, do you think she would have done it?
Yeah.
I would say that's extremely brave. And
I
we
think
need...
she's a brave woman.
I agree
I
with
think
you.
she's very smart as well, and she knew what she was up against. The vileness of the other side in this situation is just beyond. It's beyond anything, any comprehension I've got of what I regard as decent British behaviour. This weekend, the 77-year-old lady who made the petition to revoke Article 50 received 3 death threats.
By phone.
By phone.
So they found out her phone number.
They hacked into her Facebook account as well. These are people threatening to kill a 77-year-old grandmother.
For exercising her democratic right to start a petition.
If you're on their side, if you're still on their side at this point, you've really got to do that Mitchell and Webb bit where you sort of look at yourself and go, are we the bad guys? Because I'm pretty sure that 1 million people marched in London
2 million.
the weekend. Well,
I said it on Saturday in an interview.
Counted them personally.
And I am going to say it again. If it was less than 2 million people, I will eat my shiny blue hair.
She had a little clicker.
Yes.
I think it was like 3 miles worth of people going from Hyde Park all the way to
I'm
Parliament
sure there
Square.
are people out there. If there is a statistician watching, please, by all
Okay.
means, see if you can do the calculations, look at the route, look at what time the last march has arrived. If you put it in the comments and we'll have a conversation about that, and we'll see if we can calculate how many people there must have been, mathematically prove it.
And there were no arrests.
No, not even when there were 2 leavers who ran up to me, called me, like this close, called me a traitor to my face. You're all traitors! Grabbed one of my In Limbo flyers and ripped it up and threw it down.
Oh, that was nice then.
I did not flinch, I did not bat an eyelid, I did not hit them, even though they deserved it. Nobody else did either, because everybody who was at that march held themselves to a higher standard than that.
There was a leaver who was haranguing Nicola Sturgeon on the way off the stage, and he shouted, "Fuck off back to Scotland then."
Look, I've been trying so hard not to swear all this time, and now you go and drop the F off. For God's sake, Graham. Honestly.
I apologise to anyone under the age of 12 watching this. Anyone with sensitive ears. I said to him, you know, what are you talking about? Because he said you're nothing to do with this. Scotland is nothing to do with this.
No,
and I said, hang on, mate. Scotland's getting
dragged
dragged out of the EU against its will, which started a bit of a mini debate. And you know, there were people filming this, and you know, I stand my ground. If you want to try and tell me that Brexit's a good idea, or it's the will of the people, or it's democratic, I will take you on. So you know, bring it.
Bash on.
Yeah. Anyway, he walked off. They always do.
I know.
It's like that Derek and Clive sketch. It's like, what will you hit me?
And, you know, they turned around and said that we're ruled by Brussels, blah, blah, blah.
We're ruled by Brussels.
Who wants to be ruled by a foreign union? And I resisted the urge to talk about Scotland. But I did point out that, you know, Britain does take part in the democratic processes of the EU. And also that, you know, Britain is participating in making the laws, and it's also a small fraction of British laws. But the guy turned around and said, even if one law comes from Brussels, it's one law too many. And I just thought, I did reply, I said, well, even if that law is beneficial to your country.
Yeah, they all are.
Well, I think they are, for the most part. I mean, some might be a bit daft or it might be difficult, but we have the option to campaign within the EU and get laws changed, whatever.
So
anyway,
let's go back to settled status then, which is the subject of this video, before we go off on mad tangents.
So, yes, now I have we were talking about the Windrush ILR scheme and why I chose to go for the EU settlement scheme instead of the Windrush ILR scheme, Indefinite Leave to Remain, because by hook or by crook, they're going to get if I apply for British citizenship and then get a British passport, they're going to get my data anyway, and they're exempt anyway. So, you know, it was like, do I go through the hassle of finding more documentation for 30 years or 30 years worth of documentation, but only one thing per year rather than 2 things per year? Or do I just use the last 5 years?
So
anyway.
Did you pay?
I had to pay the £65.
Have you got it back?
No. Not yet. They say they will figure out a way of giving it back, but nobody knows how that's going to work yet. There is a web developer somewhere
Theresa May said it was
driving himself nuts right now, trying to figure out how to take that payment part out of the app and how to replace it, because the payment of the fee is what triggers the system to go to the DWP records and the HMRC records and check that you've had contact with them twice every year for the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So if you remove the payment part, then something else is going to have to trigger that?
I can't, it's so hard for someone who has never had to go through something like this to try and get their head around it. But I just think about it in terms of Liverpool. Now, over the last 10 years, I've travelled a lot, I've been away a lot. Imagine if one day I was told that I could no longer live and work and be with my family in Liverpool unless I could prove I'd been in Liverpool for the last 5 years.
Or rather not out of Liverpool for more than 90 years in any one given year.
90 years?
90 days,
Oh,
sorry.
God, 90 years.
Oh, 90 days.
I'm not that old. And that
So you
would be the most devastating thing I could possibly think of. Liverpool is my home. It is my home city. I will always come back here. And to have that freedom, to have that liberty taken away, to be with my family, to be with my friends is
unconscionable.
Without me committing a crime, without my side losing a war, and people are happy about this, and I see these really smug leavers who are like, we won. Like,
You lost, get over it.
Everyone lost. Everyone
Absolutely.
in this country lost, except for Jacob Rees-Mogg, who made £7 million out of it so far. I'm just trying to relate it. I'm trying to relate to people who aren't from the
charity. You know, if at least he gave some of that to, I don't know, homeless people.
Yeah, but they're just lazy.
Oh yeah, of course.
And food banks. Who was it who said that food banks? It was
Temporary cash flow problems.
That was Dominic Raab, wasn't it? Was it? Yeah, it was Dominic
Was
Raab.
it?
Yeah, it's people with cash flow. It's not people who are desperate. It's people who are starving. It's people with cash flow problems.
Yeah, caused by the fact that on universal credit they have to wait for 5 weeks before they get any money. They still need to eat in those 5 weeks. So anyway, so now I can use my settled status to apply for citizenship, for naturalization.
Okay.
I haven't managed to actually bring myself to do it yet. But also, when you look at in the past, when people had to go through the permanent residence process, and I don't know, I'll probably still, for naturalization, have to prove my presence in this country.
Yeah.
I know that people have had to resort to sending in like the stubs from boarding cards, bank statements, doctor's appointments, letters from doctors to prove that they've been in the country. And this is the thing, it's not only do you have to prove that you were not out of the country for more than 90 days, you have to prove that you were in the country, physically present here for more than 270 days. And if you know beforehand when you move to a place that might happen, if you know beforehand, like if you move to Australia, you know that if in 5 years' time or however long their rules say, you want to apply for citizenship, then you must not have been out the country for so many days a year.
Yeah.
But these rules didn't exist 5 years ago, 4 years or 3
It's like
years ago.
It's
a retroactive law.
Punishment.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing, there's a word for retroactive laws, it's called ex post facto laws. And if you Google ex post facto laws, because I Googled retroactive laws and Google referred me, and Google/Wikipedia referred me to ex post facto law. And the phrase is, ex post facto laws are frowned upon in the UK.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well,
most civilized countries actually have legislation in their constitution against ex post facto laws.
yeah.
The closest the UK has to come to that is the Acts of Parliament Commencement Act of 1796.
Wow. Okay. It's part
Which
of
has
our
been broken.
slightly written, unwritten constitution.
Yes, exactly.
So, but that is, it's disgraceful. You know who brings in laws like that? China. That's the kind of country that would bring in.
Do you really want to start talking about China on this? Because we said we were going to try and keep this video short-ish.
No, I'm just saying they're not exactly an example, a shining beacon of democracy and liberty. They've got a thing now. If you've seen the Black Mirror episode, called Nosedive, in which you've got to be nice to everyone all the time because you get a rating on your phone. And if you don't have a high rating, you can't buy a nice house or you can't get on the train. They actually have that, a version of that in China right now.
For citizens, yeah.
For citizens.
The
Yeah,
good citizen.
citizens, yeah.
How to be a good citizen.
Yeah, and if you got a bad rating,
How Orwellian would you like to get, right?
it's just when I talk to leavers and they're like, yeah, we're going to be free, we're going from being a senior partner
Yeah.
in the richest and most successful trade bloc in the world, the EU, to being a junior trade partner in a single treaty with the US, with China, and with India. We will be the junior partner in a trade deal with India because our economies, in terms of GDP, are nearly the same, but they've got loads more customers than we do.
Which is great if what we want to do is export, if we've got cheap stuff to send to them.
Cheap shite.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, for God's sake, Graham, I'm trying. I am trying.
Oh,
not
fuck,
to
crying out loud.
I give up. Right, if you've got cheap shite you want to send to them, then fine. Like China sends us cheap shite.
Yeah.
Yes? Which is actually destroying our own local industries. I know people who voted
Brexit's
leave.
sort of rolling up its sleeves and just taking them all out. It's just like a Hulk smash industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, industries here have, died out over many years already, over the last 3-4 decades. And, that's a much longer, much bigger conversation to be had. I remember back in the 90s, my then fiancé talking in his master's in engineering about the fact that the UK doesn't produce value-added goods anymore. The UK produces the screws, which are then shipped to Malaysia, and in Malaysia they produce, back then, the VCR, and then sell it for a lot more money than the screws would cost over here.
Yeah.
So there's something wrong with that kind of business model, and to then put yourself in a weaker position is simply daft. And what the UK does loads, because it's lost all these industries, what the UK has done in the last 20 years or so and kind of reinvented itself is the service industry. So the UK provides lots and lots and lots and lots of different kinds of services, in particular financial services and so on.
Oh, can I just ask a question? What protections are there from the WTO for any of our exports, any of our service exports? Is there a top
You'll
limit?
have to ask Jason.
Is there a top limit, like the 9.8% I think it is on cars, or 40% that it is on lamb, second cut to lamb, or the 160% that it is on frozen beef carcasses? No, there's no limit at all. You could literally put 1,000% trade tariff on a British service, and there's nothing we can do.
Which means that the companies that currently use British, let's say, call centres would probably want to rethink their strategy and put their call centres in Ireland,
Maybe.
India.
Shall we get back to the
So-
question in hand? This is supposed to be. This is not a Free Blokes video. This is a Unsettled Status video. So we're going to get to the bottom of this. So you chose to have go for the settled status
Yes.
route.
I chose to apply for indefinite leave to
Yeah.
remain and acquired it through the EU
Now,
settlement
do
scheme.
you-
And the other thing is, if you
Okay.
look at the draft withdrawal agreement,
Yeah.
settled status is supposed to give us the possibility to leave the country for up to 5 years without losing the status.
Yeah.
But what they're granting us is indefinite leave to remain, and if you leave the country for 2 years or more, you will lose it. So we're not getting what was promised.
Wow, you're
And a lot of people who
chained
have-
to this country now.
A lot of people who have settled status, who got it in the trial period, don't actually understand or know this. Because in the draft withdrawal agreement it says 5 years, they think 5 years. So I actually worry about people who might have started a degree course or applied for a degree
another
course.
country.
Because
But what if
degree
one
is
of your
4 years.
parents gets dementia and you have to go back to your home country to care for them, and then you want to come back to be with your husband or wife and kids in this country, and they say no?
Dare I mention Irene Clement?
Who's Irene Clement?
She was a lady from Singapore who had lived in the UK for 27 years and is the carer to her husband, who had to take early retirement after he became disabled. And she went back to Singapore to care for her mother, who was terminally ill and eventually also died. And as a result of that, she was out of the country too many days in any 1 year, and she lost her indefinite leave to remain. Returned to the UK and promptly got arrested, got put in a detention centre. Now, UK detention centres are medium security prisons. They are the worst detention centres in the developed world. And uniquely in the developed world...
We're tying with Australia, where they send people to the island of Nauru.
Yeah, okay. But they do not have... I think Australia has a time limit on how long you're allowed to be detained. The UK has no time limit. You know, when you get sent to prison, you know how long your sentence is.
That must be kind of reassuring in some way.
It is. You can count down.
Yeah.
When you get sent to a detention centre, you count up.
Wow.
In the same way as we've been counting how many days we've been in limbo. So
can I ask?
Today is at 1,004 days in limbo.
Can I ask? Do you know anyone who's been turned down for settled status?
There is no. At the moment, there's no data on that. I don't know anybody who was specifically turned down. We know people where it's taken longer, or who have applied and not yet been granted settled status.
Okay.
I mean, in effect, I was turned down at first by the automated part, because I was asked for more evidence. So there's getting turned down, or there's no rejection. The way the system is built, and that's an improvement on how things used to be, is that there's less rejection. So you don't get wholesale rejected, you get asked for more evidence.
Right, okay.
Which just then obviously prolongs the process and makes it go longer.
What are we doing? Why are we doing this?
I have no idea. I have no idea why Brexit, why do... And, you know, if you wanted to withdraw from the EU, well, okay, fine. You can have a very simple registration process for all the people who've been here for longer than 5 years. You know, in the same way as you have settled and pre-settled status. I mean, there's lots of people who've applied for settled status and been given pre-settled status because the evidence for them was not long enough. You know, they could only evidence the last 2 years, so the Home Office has just, we'll give you pre-settled status, which after 5 years you then have to apply to convert it to settled status, even though they've been here longer, but they've only been able to give evidence for, say, the last 2 years. That's fine, that part of it, that differentiation and that distinction between people who've been here for less than 5 years and people who've been here for more than 5 years. But it should be a really simple registration process, and the onus of evidence should be on the Home Office and on the government.
Yeah,
not
exactly,
on us.
Exactly. It should be up to them to prove that you're making it up, that you want to live in this xenophobic hellhole that we've become. I mean, it boils my piss that we've got these dickheads in Lincoln who were like, you know what? I don't like people who are born 200 miles south of me, but the people born 200 miles north of me, they're okay.
Well, no, they're not, because they're Scottish.
100 miles. in a town that I've never visited and never will visit, that they're okay because they're one of ours. But the people who live in the country that I've been to loads and visited loads and go there on my holiday, I don't like them. They came out their mum in the wrong place. This is where we are right now. It's absolutely bonkers. If you zoom out from the planet and you go, what are we doing?
And do you know what? I mean, climate change?
Well, I was going to come on to that, yeah.
Do we not have bigger things to worry about?
We have bigger fish to fry. We honestly do. The world is on fire. The amount of devastating weather phenomenon that has gone on in the last 10 years, and it's just going to get worse. We've just seen basically huge swathes of Mozambique wiped out by a storm. Beira, the city of Beira, which I've actually been to, 90% of the buildings there were either completely destroyed or partially destroyed. 90%. Imagine going over to Liverpool and 90% of the buildings are just gone.
I can't. Actually, I've
someone dropped a nuke.
Sat here and looked at you and kind of tried to visualise, and I can't visualise
we
that
sometimes
scale of
try and
devastation.
get some positive out of this. What Brexit's done is it's made people like me and you get active.
Absolutely.
We've been down to London for these marches. We actually care.
I'm still exhausted.
Got all these community groups that have been growing up around the country of people, like-minded people who all now communicate and are connected on social media who didn't know each other before. Once Brexit's over, once this whole nightmare is put to bed, we can pivot. We can take all these activists, because I guarantee if you meet someone who cares about Brexit, there are also people who care about the environment. And we will have a small army of people who are willing to get up and do something and make sure that in 50 years' time, the Earth is still habitable?
Because this is the crux. It's not whether the world will still be here. The planet
the planet will be fine.
survive.
Yeah.
Whether we can
It's
still
we.
live on it.
It's us.
But do you know what I learned on Saturday?
Your children and your grandchildren.
Exactly. What I learned on Saturday is that the majority of environmental protection laws and laws, for example, one of the guys on the bus I went to London on was an avid twitcher, a bird watcher.
Bird watcher.
And he said, "Oh, did you notice the buzzards above the motorway? They're protected by EU laws, and the day the UK leaves, those laws fall away. And believe you me," he said, "there are guys with shotguns who can't wait."
Yeah. Well, I remember
take
there
a
being
pop at
no
them.
fish in the Mersey when I was a kid growing up in the 80s. There
And
were
you
no
were definitely
fish.
told not to dip
If
your
someone
foot in
caught an eel in the Mersey, like, oh my God, I caught an eel. You know, you're told not to swim in it. Down at the beach, we used to go down
now have
to
dolphins going up the
Formby
river.
Beach quite a lot as a kid. It was covered in crap, literally crap. And that was all cleaned up because a lot of the environmental laws that have come in the last 40 years have come in through the EU.
Now, granted, I know I will recognise and acknowledge that there is an opportunity in Brexit to make even stronger laws or to, you know, have to do all sorts of things.
Yeah,
But
they
it's
keep
not
talking.
likely to happen. And
Why do they
also
keep
we
talking
can
about a
do
bonfire
this.
of regulations then?
Well, exactly. We can do this and don't have to leave the EU
Yeah.
to do it. The EU sets minimum regulations. We
Yeah.
can have stronger ones. We can nationalise the railways.
Yeah.
We can, you know, we can do all these things. The EU doesn't stop any
Well,
of this.
one of the things that Britain excelled in was safety. The
Mm-hmm.
British standards, British safety kite was a world lead. It was the best in the world,
wasn't that adopted by the EU?
Yeah, we brought the rest of the EU up to our
So
level.
Britain was dictating to the
Yes.
rest of Europe.
Yes, which we've done quite a lot actually. It was us that wanted to expand Europe. The other countries did not want to expand, but we were like, oh, customers.
And Britain has 13% of the seats in the European Parliament, disproportionately loads more than most other countries. Do you know the average percentage of seats? 3%, and Britain has 13. So Britain has more than 4 times the number of seats.
And
than
we
the
team up with
average
Ireland
country.
on a lot of issues, and also other northern European countries like Sweden and Denmark and Finland.
And France. Britain, Germany and France are this sort of triumvirate that really kind of
Well, we're senior
along
partner.
Exactly. So like you say, you know, why would you want to give all that
We've
up?
been taken over by spoilt rich kids who don't want to play with the other kids. Anyway, we're going off topic a little bit, so let's just wrap this up because, again, I said this would be 20 minutes and now we're up to 40 minutes again. This is what happened in the first video. Tangents, tangents.
Yeah, there are a few of those, but there was something else I wanted to mention. But oh yes, the march,
Yes.
the 2 million strong march, and how we go forward from that. One thing that it has shown is that there is an amazing community. You've alluded to it already, and I feel quite empowered by this, and as knackered as I feel, it's so nice. It was such a nice environment, and I was on a Twitter conversation this morning with Lancashire for EU and York for Europe, and you know, Yorkshire, Lancashire, War of the Roses. Oh my God, they are lovely. The love.
Have they
and
put
the
that
solidarity.
500-year-old conflict behind them?
Absolutely.
Jolly
They're
good.
exchanging badges. They are. I accidentally, you know, in my adult state, coming off the coach and all excited, I saw a white rose, and I said, "Oh, thanks for coming down all the way from Lancaster." And then, you know, carried on walking.
No, that's Yorkshire.
Then
Lancashire's red rose.
Oh crap, that's Yorkshire. Lancaster's the red one.
No, it could be worse if someone.
So they didn't lynch me for that. You know?
I don't lynch people who say to me, "Oh, I thought you were from Manchester."
I mentioned this to yeah,
Maybe if they say they
like
think
to.
I'm from Birmingham, then they might get lynched. But yeah,
Now, where is it you're from again?
Liverpool.
He's a Scouser.
I'm very Liverpool.
But it was absolutely gorgeous today on Twitter to see the love and solidarity between these two groups. and humour with it, and it was just a beautiful thing to behold. And we have all of that collaboration and working with each other and supporting each other, and that's what the European Union is about, and that's what all of life and all the world.
It's made us appreciate the
EU
EU more than we ever did before.
It certainly
So yeah, but we're trying to end this video on a positive note. So I'm sorry you've had to go through what you've had to go through in order just to continue your life as normal. I hope that people watching this can
I hope so too.
empathise.
Don't be sorry. Hold your government to account. Sign the petition that asks for EU citizens to be given the right to vote in elections.
Yeah, and also the petition to revoke Article 50. Even if you think there should be a people's vote, and personally I think we need a people's vote because I don't think revoking Article 50 just on its own will heal the divisions in society. Me and Femi were talking about this on Friday. However, it is a great indicator to use because you've got that wonderful geographical map of the country broken down by constituency, and you can see exactly how many people in each constituency have voted with their mouse finger to say they want to see a revocation of Article 50. And also, EU citizens can actually sign this.
EU citizens can sign petitions.
And also children under the age of 18.
As long as they have an email address.
Yes, can sign the petition as well. So please, anyone watching this who really wants to do something about this, please get your family. If every one person who's signed that petition so far gets just 3 other people to sign it, we'll have more people have signed that petition than voted to leave.
And we need to get that petition to 18 million for it to really, really make an impact. And like I say, there is another petition to give the vote to those who are in limbo and in limbo too. And incidentally, just this morning, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. Just this morning, I saw a message from a friend who lives in an EU 27 country who's a British citizen, and he was advised by the local government not to travel to the UK because apparently Germany isn't recognising the extension. Now, I've thought about this after my initial moment of panic, because obviously for me that also means the deadline of the 29th of March to apply for citizenship, which I'm not going to go into because of time constraints. Yeah. But that's what people were really up in arms and panicked about is, will I now have literally just until the 29th to get my application for German citizenship started, and it's not until the 12th of April or maybe the 22nd of May. That said, EU law trumps national law, so the Germans can object to accepting the extension all that they like. If the EU has accepted the extension, then that stands. So I've got to double check this, but I think we can calm down and not panic too much that this extension will actually stand and will be recognised by Germany. But there was some debate and some worry about this. And again, why should people have to worry about this? Why is there a gentleman in Berlin?
There's not enough things in life.
Citizen?
There's not enough things in life to worry about. Obviously, we need our government to give us loads more things to worry about. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, why does there have to be a British citizen sitting in Berlin and fully expecting to be dead at the end of April because he cannot afford to pay for his insulin?
Wow.
Without the NHS S1 scheme, which Theresa May could unilaterally agree to continue and hasn't, end quote.
Wow. That's a whole nother video. That's a whole nother video.
Should we make another video about that?
I think we need to make another video.
Bringing it back to a positive note to end on.
The positive note, you just said he's going to die.
Let's stop this. We have the ways and the means to stop this. We can hold this government to account. We can
just keep the pressure on.
And
keep
lobby
the pressure on.
Government.
Yeah,
exactly.
Someone asked me on the train when I was leaving London on Saturday. They said, "Do you think it's going to make any difference?" And I said, "Even if there's just a 1% chance that it'll change anything, it was worth it."
It's worth it. Absolutely, it's worth a try. Yeah. Everything and anything is worth a try. Nothing is worse than sitting back and saying, "Oh well, it's not going to do it."
The only thing that won't achieve anything is literally doing nothing.
Exactly.
That's not going to achieve anything. But
so
if
at
you
least
do
we have to try.
Okay, so thanks for joining us for this video, and I want to say, well done in a horrible way for getting your settled status. And yeah, are there any more developments on this? And if you get any more people who have had trouble getting the settled status, or and what implications there are for British citizens abroad, we'd love to do more videos about this.
If you're on Twitter, check out @InLimboBrexit. We've got lots of stories on there about people's experiences with the settled status application, and we also represent people abroad. We work together with Brexpats Hear Our Voice and British in Europe and the 3 Million, of course.
Right, brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Cosi.
Bye.